you really can't essentially move beyond the first page. It says, China looming, India steps up presence in South Pacific. Narendra Modi ji with the Indian diaspora, Indian flags, just smiles all across. There's nothing else. It's just pure smiles. It's almost like a celebrity fanfare for the Prime Minister.
Well, it is a celebrity fanfare, but beyond this, there is something more deeper. We have the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and the Prime Minister, both of them at these specific countries, and both of them were holding parallel summits. And it's got a lot to do with the Quad from outside, and at the same time, Kabir, India is now going beyond its look east policy. And of course, the elephant in the room is none other than China, who's driving both the US and India to look into the Pacific Island groups. Because the Pacific Island groups are strategic locations in the Pacific Ocean, and China has been having its eyes on this completely. So it is very important that we in fact try to figure out as to why India is also joining in, because what India has in fact looked for bilateral relationship with these nations in the Pacific is on pharmacy, on fuel aid, as well as with regards to certain fertilizers. So these are strengths that India has, and it wants to leverage it with these specific countries. And here, the big bogey has been China's looming debt trap. So
take a look at those visuals.
Yeah, of course.
This is Sydney, if I'm not mistaken, and his arrival in Sydney. For the benefit of the viewers, Australia is 4.5 hours ahead of the Indian Standard Time. That's the Prime Minister. I mean, the sheen with which he carries himself on foreign soil, it's something that one just ends up being proud of when you open the newspapers the next day. Take a look at these visuals. I'm sure the internet agencies are going to come up with small short videos of how Modi ji received a grand welcome when he arrived in Sydney. But from Fiji, from Papua New Guinea, the highest civilian awards that were being conferred, bestowed upon the Indian Prime Minister. Even as he got off that plane, yesterday we were talking about how the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, James Marape, he, bowed down to touch Prime Minister's feet to greet the Indian Prime Minister in the Indian way. So, in the geopolitical scenario of the Pacific region, of Southeast Asia, seems like the elephant in the room isn't necessarily just China anymore. I mean, one has to really take into account, really factor in what India brings onto the table.
Well, that's what I said. Like India was in fact using, and see, this is very interesting. Tribune has put it, 12-point plan for Pacific Islands, and that is what Modi ji has said. What is it? 100-bed facility hospital in Fiji, IT cyber security training in PNG, 100 Sagar Amrit scholarships, Jaipur food camp in PNG by year end. FIPIC SME development projects, solar projects, everything that is part of India's strength has been in fact showcased over there. And Tribune has a very interesting way in it, has in fact put it across, and in fact speaks also how it is actually a parallel summit. So India is using its soft power as well as its economic might to in fact go ahead and be relevant when it comes to it. I was just looking at probably it is in one of Hindustan Times also, which is talking about, yes, the India scales up ties with Pacific Islands. So again, over here, the question is being about, in the opening remarks of the meeting, Modi referred to challenges facing the small island countries, such as climate change, health-related issues, and barriers to the supply of food, fuel, fertilizers and pharmaceutical. And he goes on to in fact make a slight remark over that. He says, those whom we considered trustworthy, it turned out they were not standing by our side in times of need. A clear reference to China in this. So it looks like there is a geopolitical event also happening on the parallel side of this, and therefore I think it is interesting to see how India's outreach goes beyond its look east policy, and Hindustan Times of course in bringing on that. But I think the Express has an interesting
Can I be the devil's advocate here? Yeah. I mean, because nobody's going to ask this question, so I'm just going to put it out there. There's a 12-point plan. The Prime Minister's pledged, IT and health projects all across these smaller countries, these smaller island nations that India really wants to help. But take a look at how we've helped Sri Lanka. Let's not forget the evacuations that we've conducted. But at the same time, do you think the Prime Minister going on foreign soil, of course, you've got several people, several fringe elements as well in society that are going to be, that won't take much time, but to jump to the fact that, the Prime Minister is wasting the taxpayers' money, going abroad, is spending more time abroad, all those memes and all those, those quirky trivias, negative trivias about the Prime Minister that do the round on the internet. I'm just saying, if the Prime Minister goes out there, these IT projects, these health projects, do you think these are, like toothless initiations that don't really trickle down in terms of benefits to the larger population, but for a great, it does great for a headline, but nothing else?